Review of Olivier Knox's U.S. News Decision Points newsletter. Olivier Knox's newsletter attempts to provide a broad overview of key political and policy-related topics, interweaving mainstream media narratives with his commentary. His writing style is informal, engaging, and self-aware, often injecting humor and acknowledging biases. In this edition, Knox touches on multiple issues, including Trump's potential large-scale sanctions against Russia, the Education Department's decision to cancel $400 million in grants to Columbia University over anti-Semitism concerns, the Justice Department's investigation into rising egg prices, Trump's social media strategy and its impact on political messaging, Canada's response to U.S. policy blunders, a developing foreign policy issue regarding post-Assad Syria, the resurgence of measles and its link to vaccine hesitancy. Knox aggregates and summarizes various topics well but leans heavily on mainstream narratives without challenging them or offering diverse perspectives. The newsletter often subtly frames issues to favor progressive viewpoints, such as emphasizing Trump's alleged misinformation while ignoring similar behavior from left-leaning figures. His writing strength lies in his conversational tone and ability to make complex topics digestible for an audience that prefers an opinionated yet readable news digest. However, his weakness is an apparent ideological slant, which dismisses alternative perspectives and reinforces mainstream liberal biases. Rebuttal to Olivier Knox's newsletter. Olivier Knox's newsletter follows the mainstream media's predictable approach of selectively presenting facts, framing issues to paint Trump and conservatives in a negative light, and reinforcing progressive narratives without much balance. 1. Trump's social media blitz Knox and the Washington Post frame, Trump's social media dominance as saturating the environment with spin, yet fail to acknowledge that the Biden administration and Democrats do the same thing through different channels, such as corporate media, big tech, and progressive influencers. Why is it a problem when Trump effectively uses social media to reach people directly, but it's considered responsible messaging when the Democrats held White House coordinates with media outlets and Silicon Valley companies? 2. Canada's ticked-off response. The argument that Canada is standing up to Trump is misleading. Trudeau's rising poll numbers are more about rallying his liberal base than a broad Canadian rejection of Trump's policies. The claim that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was incorrect about unions in Canada could be cherry-picking. Yes, Canada has higher overall unionization. Still, there are regions and industries with fewer labor restrictions than in the U.S. Context matters. 3. Post-Assad Syria's evolution. Knox downplays the importance of Syria's instability by framing it as a boring but significant issue. What he fails to address is who is shaping Syria's future, namely Iran, Russia, and China, not the Syrian people. The real question isn't whether Syria will embrace extremism, but how much globalist influence will determine its fate. 4. The Education Department's crackdown on Columbia. Surprisingly, Knox fails to critique the left's handling of anti-Semitism on college campuses. The Biden administration finally acted against the rampant anti-Semitism in elite universities, but the leftist media largely ignored the problem until it became politically untenable. Would Knox be as dismissive if the issue were right-wing discrimination rather than leftist-enabled anti-Semitism? 5. Fact-checking Trump's fentanyl claims. Trump's stance on fentanyl and China's role in it is not misinformation. China does export precursor chemicals for fentanyl production. The Mexican cartels, aided by the lax Biden administration border policies, fueled the crisis. Knox's approach of fact-checking Trump's rhetoric, but ignoring the Biden administration's failed border enforcement, shows clear bias. In short, Knox is not providing neutral analysis. He's reinforcing the media establishment's anti-Trump, pro-Democrat bias, even when it requires ignoring inconvenient truths. Overview of Olivier Knox's newsletter and its role in political media. Olivier Knox represents the modern establishment media mindset, a mixture of old-school journalism, providing information, with a heavy dose of editorializing and framing issues through a progressive lens. What the newsletter does well, it covers a broad range of topics in an accessible, informal way, provides links to sources so readers can explore topics further, highlights under-discussed issues like Syria's future rather than focusing solely on the U.S., Where it falls short, bias in framing. It heavily critiques Trump and conservative policies while giving Democrats a free pass. Lack of balance. It doesn't provide alternative perspectives, reinforcing progressive media narratives. Failure to acknowledge Democrat-led failures. Issues like anti-Semitism on campuses and the fentanyl crisis require more scrutiny of leftist policies, but Knox avoids it. Final verdict. Knox's newsletter is not an objective analysis of political issues, but a left-leaning editorial disguised as a political digest. While it has its strengths in readability and variety, its bias is glaring, making it useful only for those who already align with its ideological perspective.